Thank you, Mark. I've learned quite a few things in my very brief time on the Melbourne Press Club Committee, one of which is that the committee is, as Mark said, populated by truly great people from all the media here in Victoria. I've learned as well, doing a bit of research on this project, that we do have a rich media heritage in this state, in this city. And the third, I suppose, and the most important thing I've learned is that you can try, but you can never say no to Mike Smith. Please welcome former editor of The Age turned PR Supremo, Mike Smith.
Thanks, Michael. And I've just got 4 or 5 quick points before we start naming names. I'd also like to acknowledge my fellow advisory panel members, Geoffrey Blaney and Harry Gordon. They've done a tremendous amount of work in the last 12 months. They were our first choices for this piece of work, and we were thrilled. They were both happy to have their arms twisted. Geoffrey is not only a great and prolific historian, he's got a long-standing passion for the media ever since he edited Farrago in his student days at Melbourne University. He's written articles and columns for all the decent papers in Australia. We found there'd been no history book written on the media in Victoria. There are plenty of books on aspects of that history, but no whole history. And on those books on aspects of the history, Geoffrey's got a foreword in more than 2 or 3 of them. Harry Gordon, he's one of the most successful and best editors of our lifetimes, and in his own right, a noted historian, including Australia's official Olympic historian. His terrific book, Eyewitness History of Australia, which has been republished a few times, has many great yarns about Australian journalism, and it was a terrific reference for the panel. Women didn't get much of a look in the media in the first 50 years in Melbourne or anywhere else in Australia, but they have made some astonishing contributions further down the track, and 3 women are included in tonight's inductions. For advice on women journalists and writers, we're indebted to Dr. Patricia Clark, who's written 8 or 9 books on women in Australia, including one on women writers of the 19th century. She's here tonight on the table in the corner. Thank you very much, Patricia. As we move through this Hall of Fame project, we'll refresh the panel and get some gender balance, particularly as women become more prominent as we move through the decades. But Patricia was a fantastic help discovering stuff that I'm sure nobody in this room were aware of. Women made some terrific contributions to the media, editorially and commercially, 100 years ago. The panel decided we wouldn't include contemporary journalists on the first induction. That was disappointing to a few people, but it was a conscious and deliberate decision. We wanted to look at the past first because we felt that would help us make better decisions about the present. It would set the standard or the benchmark against which present-day journalists could be measured and make it very clear what we were looking for in the Hall of Fame. So we chose from the first 100 years from 1838. We haven't finished with that period yet. We may well have more people from that first 100 years in the second and third inductions. The panel has very broad criteria. Inductees must have made a significant contribution to the craft of journalism, but also enhanced the history of the news media in Victoria. Inductees must have a strong connection with Victoria. Birthplace is not enough, nor is it a prerequisite. Tonight's selections further refine what we're looking for. As a group, when you consider them as a group, the characteristics which bind them are leadership, courage, and innovation. Characteristics that will be just as important for today's generation of journalists and the very different challenges they face. It's also remarkable how young many of these inductees were when they established their legacies. The media has been a young person's game for much of its history, and to me that suggests that the solutions to today's huge challenges will come easier if we once again allow youth to flower. The Hall of Fame project, the core of it will be built over 3 years. There'll be 3 annual inductions, beginning with tonight. And the second year will include probably a small number of contemporary journalists, and the third year will be dominated by contemporary journalists. We're looking for a corporate sponsor to allow us to have a bigger dinner audience next year and the following year. We'd like more people to share this. We'd like the families and friends of people who are inducted to share the dinner. So we're looking at a bigger event next year and a real big one in year 3. We're also looking to establish some kind of physical Hall of Fame in an appropriate public space where people can reflect on the impact great journalism has had on Victoria, and perhaps where members of the Press Club can occasionally gather for functions and a dash of inspiration from their journalistic heroes. The media in Victoria and elsewhere, they enjoy knocking each other's blocks off. It's good sport, but it does contribute to the poor public image of the media. There should also be much more room for celebrating each other's successes and telling the public about the achievements of journalists. And I'd suggest that's needed now more than ever. That's what the Hall of Fame is about. Indeed, that's what the Melbourne Press Club is about. And finally, I'd ask you all to consider sending in your nominations. Hall of Fame at melbournepressclub.com. I can't think of a better group to get nominations from. They'll all be considered seriously. We want nominations. Send them in, and then if they're considered, you can't complain that someone was left out. So please let us know who you think should be inducted into the Hall of Fame in the next 2 years. Thanks very much.